Hey guys, it's Steve Zanardo. Welcome to another episode of Sunshine State of the Market. We've got a special guest today, Indera Demine. She owns Demine Attorney in Immigration. Actually, Indera was our immigration attorney that actually got us into the United States of around 4 years ago, I would imagine. We started the journey. Like it was Feb of 2022. So we hit it off right away, and we're still here after 4 years.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. I think it's the right fit. Obviously, it's a West Coast connection. We've kind of put everything into a West Coast perspective because that's where a lot of my clients are moving down to now. So, which is great. At least they have like a brick and mortar place right in the place they're moving. So, and what best is because also, the journey for us was stressful. Clearly, it was in a very crazy time in Toronto in 2022.
Right.
Just kind of like still in COVID era, like kind of thing. I couldn't travel because I wasn't vaccinated, so it was a whole issue. Until later, clearly, but so it was chaos. But ultimately, when we got down here, we fell in love with this place. And I don't know if you remember, but we started this journey. So we hired you. We submitted. We started doing the paperwork for submittal. We bought a few properties. We hired a few employees. We leased space. But I've never seen the west coast of Florida.
Yeah, because I remember when I actually met you face to face, we were well into your process. Like we had already filed.
I was able to fly in April.
Like at that point it was more like, hey, I would like to put a face to the name because we had spoken to each other so many times but never actually seen each other face to face. That's funny. But with technology these days,
it was good. No, it was good. Everything worked out. We're really happy. And again, it's going on 4 years now with the family.
Awesome. I can't believe it.
It's exciting. We love it. This is home to us, as we were talking earlier. We've integrated quite well into the community, and it's our home for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for your hard work and your firm.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just ask you some questions.
Sure.
Again, obviously we're doing that seminar the end of March into Feb, so we want to, or end of Feb into March rather, and give the Canadians a taste of what they're going to be expecting from you and your law firm.
Okay.
So this just 10 questions. I'll just lob them up. What are the biggest immigration myths Canadians believe about moving to the U.S.?
Good question. I think that sometimes when you think immigration, you think one process, like you need someone to sponsor you. You need a petitioner, someone bringing you to the United States, whether that's an employer or a family member. You think, I need somebody sponsoring me. Well, there are some self-sponsorship options, investor visa options and so on. And so I think that one of the things that Canadians don't know are all the visa options that might be out there. And so I'm happy and excited to share that with them.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, there's so many choices. Whatever fits their needs, right? Okay, so great. So second question, what visa options do Canadian families realistically qualify for today?
And it really depends on that family. For example, does anyone in that family have a skill set, a unique background? Maybe an employment-based visa might be an option. Or do they own a business in Canada and they want to open a branch in the United States? Well, maybe an L1A visa is an option. Or let's say they're an entrepreneur and they want to create a business in the U.S. Whatever that business might be. Maybe they're following their passion and they want to open a restaurant. Maybe so an E2 investor visa might be an option. So it really depends on that family, their background, and which is why I think it's important to first have a consultation, kind of tell, this is my dream case scenario. I want to bring my family. I want to start this business. Or I want to open a branch of my business. Or I have this employer wanting to hire me. What are my options?
I think it's even a valid point because I tell a lot of Canadians up north as well. It's like, so you have enough equity because the house up there worth a ton of money.
Right.
So selling a lot of equity, you got cash in the bank, and you have skill. Like you could rewrite your life's chapters here, or rewrite your book with empty blank chapters.
Exactly.
So if it's something you're passionate about,
exactly.
And that's why I tell Canadians too. It's like if you're doing mortgages, like, do you really want to do that here?
Exactly.
Open up another business, something you're passionate about.
Right.
So I think it's great.
And a lot of times when I see with the Canadians, you take that equity from the house, you could use that funds for whatever your passion project might be. And so for the last 20 years, I've worked for an employer. I want to be self-employed. I want to run my own ship. That's your opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That's what I advise them all. But don't think of what you're doing if you want to continue.
Exactly.
You can change your life. The third question, why do so many Canadians get denied or delayed when applying on their own, like a for sale by owner?
That's a good question. You see, what we notice, and this is my 13-year practicing now, there are trends. Trends that happen at each consulate post, whether it's Toronto, London, And as an immigration attorney, I'm a member of AILA, which is the American Immigration Lawyers Association. So we're part of these different groups. I'm part of the E2 Visa Master Group. And so immigration practitioners from around the United States will post, my client just went X, Y, and Z, and this is what they said, or my client did this and X, Y, and Z. And so we are always on top of the latest trends, seeing what are happening at the post so we can advise our clients. And these are not things that are posted on the consulate's website. This is just based on, collecting information from other clients and their experiences.
Being a professional.
Exactly.
All the data.
And I think that part is what's so important about the practice, is having that knowledge base.
Absolutely.
And not just, if you don't have it, how to get it. And so sometimes I'll get a question, I go, you know what, let me reach out to my colleagues and see what their experience have been like. And so I think
I think you actually did it with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because ours is we had a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah. But okay, cool. So pretty much. And again, like we was talking to somebody just recently, they're trying to do some of this application on their own. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people now with AI and all this, they're applying to AI, but AI doesn't give you the full thing that you need. You need the actual boots on the ground experience to kind of guide it right through the path.
Advocacy, advocating for the client. I can't tell how many times I've had to reach out to the consulate because it's taking too long. We need an interview.
Yeah.
And so, I reach out and say, you've been reviewing this case now for, several weeks. We're ready to schedule the interview. What's the holdup? Or the client gets scheduled for an interview very far out. I need to expedite that interview. So I, submit a request to expedite. Or the consulate issues, and this is not particular for an investor visa, but I had a client, a fiance visa in Colombia, initially denied because they said your fiance has lived in the United States illegally in the past, and and so we've reached out to them and they changed that decision. Now that fiance can come to the United States. So advocating for the client is really what my job is, and that doesn't really stop at a decision. If it's a negative decision, we reach out to find out why and how can we fix that issue.
Absolutely, I agree. Always hire the pros to get the job done.
Yeah.
Number 4 is buying a real estate business really one of the most reliable paths for Canadian, and where do people get it wrong?
Buying a business is a pathway to an investor visa, an E2 investor visa. I would say buying a business. Now, if your passion is real estate, there are several things you have to prove in order to get that investor visa. You got to show that business is going to be profitable. It's not going to be a marginal business. So it's going to be a business that can hire U.S. workers down the line. You have to show that you've made an active and at-risk investment. And so when I'm meeting with somebody and their idea is, I want to buy a business, I'm going through those things that you have to prove in order to achieve that visa. Now, what is the likelihood that you're going to need to hire U.S. workers down the line? Okay, maybe in 2 months I need a receptionist. So we go through all those points to ensure that the business meets the needs for the investor visa. I will say almost all business, as most service industry businesses will obviously meet the need. We filed for roofing company, pressure washing company, restaurants, trucking company, real estate company.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. As long as the business can show it's going to hire U.S. workers, it's going to be profitable, you've made an at-risk investment into the business, you can show where the funds came from to invest, you have a good chance of getting the visa.
That's a great question too. Even with the visa itself, like an E2 that we're on, and then you can obviously our goal is to become permanent resident, green card, then citizenship. And again, the E2 doesn't have a path to citizenship. But ultimately, you can kind of build on it and renew it every 5 years. Obviously, if your company's still operating and doing what it's got to do.
Absolutely. And so I've seen E2 clients, because it's a 5-year visa, that have been on that visa for 20 years.
Okay.
And if you've lived in the United States for 20 years, come on, it's your country.
I've been here like for 6 months already unplugged.
I know, right? So yeah, you could, depending on the needs of your family, depending on your long-term goal. Some folks want to continue to renew the E2 versus becoming a permanent resident because of tax implications and so on.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I've seen folks on it for 20 years.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay, so there's always an option. Even if the ET is the only way to get in, you just got to renew it every 5 years.
For sure.
This is a question. I mean, we can both talk about this as well. But what's the correct order Canadians should follow? Visa, business, real estate, or taxes? I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, and I think knowledge is important. Knowledge is power. So you got to know what are your options. So for me, I think the first thing is to speak to someone to understand what are your immigration options.
Yes.
Because
that's what I did.
Right. You're like, what can I apply for?
Yeah.
And so they'll ask you about what are your family ties. Maybe you had an old petition that your brother filed 10 years ago. We might need to look at that petition to see if it creates a pathway, you know? So you look at your family ties. What's your educational background?
Yeah.
Do you have a skill set are you looking to be employed? Some people like to have an employer versus being self-employed, you know, so we look at your educational background. What are your goals long term? Are you looking to stay permanently and so on? What are you currently doing in Canada, right? Are you self-employed in Canada? So all of those options, all of those questions are important to figure out what are the correct options when it comes to visa. So to me, that's number one.
Yes.
I think secondly, maybe taxes would also be an important thing to address up front. So you're aware of the tax implication very early on. If you're going to make such a big move, right,
yes,
and move your family over.
Yeah.
After that, obviously, if it's investing in the correct business,
yes.
So finding a business broker that you trust to find the right business that fits your needs, and then obviously your family is going to need a place to live. Are you thinking about renting or owning a piece of real estate? And if so, having that conversation with a realtor is important.
Absolutely. So even just kind of rewind my process, because we kind of were we're really hard on it real quick. So we called you, we talked the tax implications, want to make sure how much money we're going to net, because we sold a ton of assets, like investment properties, primary residence, like it was all happening at the same time. So we called you and then we listed everything just right after, all the investment properties, all their primary residence. And then, deal with the tax accountant because kind of see what we're going to net.
That's right.
Double tax,
That's
not double tax, it was the egress tax rather.
Right.
And then the business, I didn't even think about it, to be honest. I didn't even know I was going to open up a real estate office here.
Right, because you created versus
it.
purchasing.
Correct, yeah.
Yep.
So it was, we didn't know what we were going to do down here. All I knew is I wanted to be in the United States. So that was the most important factor. Then, however, what I did here was obviously we'll make it work. But that's pretty much it. And then for the community, we just kind of looked at, like, especially Southwest Florida, the income per capita, the safety factor to it. It's the Gulf Coast. Technically less hit by storms by the East Coast. So the last 2 years, we've been bombed, but it's usually a lot less stormy on this side.
Yes.
So this all was important to me coming from Canada, where 50-mile-per-hour winds, you lose half of your shingles on your house, and squirrels versus gators. So we wanted to make sure we picked like a great section. But you're right. It's just that's the process. You got to talk to your immigration attorney right away, because that's your main goal is to leave. So sometimes we get clients that come in, they just want to look at houses. I get it. Like you want to see what the area has to offer. You want to make sure you're making the right choice. But your number one goal should be leaving. So talk to an immigration attorney, get that going, and then start looking for which coastline you want to be on.
I agree. Yeah. Obviously.
From my experience. Number 6, how long does the immigration process actually take for most Canadian families?
It really depends on a number of factors. Things come up along the way. And so if you are eager to move and everything lines up, you find the right business, because sometimes it takes a while to find the right business to purchase, lining up the finances and so on. Ideally, if I'm speaking of ideally, everything
like microwave version,
right? If everything worked great, 3 to 6 months.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, 3 to 6 months.
So if you started the application process, get all the paperwork within that 3 months, you would file the packet.
Absolutely.
And then get the appointment?
Yeah, and so appointment times vary. And so we've had times where, right around COVID and after COVID, it was taking a lot longer to get interviews. Yes. Right now, we're seeing interviews move very quickly. And so, right now, Toronto in particular, we're getting interviews relatively quickly. So 3 to 6 months would be an ideal situation.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think also people are a little worried too. There's obviously with tariffs and all that thing, a little bit of ill feelings up north, but it doesn't matter. It's not affecting the people that want to move out here. But a lot of them are scared that the immigration process is going to affect them as, let's say, foreign nationals coming from Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I haven't seen that.
I think this is a big myth too.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, tariffs are completely separate than the immigration process.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if an immigration officer is going to deny you a visa, they have to explain why.
Okay.
Right? It's
can't be biased because you're from Canada.
No,
yeah. Okay.
No.
Okay.
So it's different if you're applying for, like, in certain countries, Canadians don't need a visitor's visa, but visitor's visa you can be denied for any reason. Canadians don't need a visa, visitor's visa. Let's say Canadian applied for an investor visa. Mm-hmm. An officer can't just say, I'm going to deny you. You know, the officer has to say, here's the part of your packet that I need further information about, or this is where the marginality is an issue. I don't think this business is going to generate enough income to hire U.S. workers. Okay. And so, you wouldn't see a denial just because you're Canadian and there's, tariffs and we don't,
Yeah.
The relationship between the two countries shouldn't affect the actual visas for Canadians, at least.
Okay.
Different countries, it might be a different story.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that are on the terrorist list.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So yeah, that's a myth. This is my camera.
Yeah.
That's a myth. So listen to what Indera is saying, because a lot of Canadians feel like that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of them, but I mean, it's obviously the news media up north doesn't want high income, money leaving.
To be leaving.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All this money, all these assets
Yes.
leaving the country. So they're kind of
I get that
obviously
too, yeah.
slowing that down. With information.
Yeah.
Number 8, can Canadians keep ties to Canada while living in the U.S., or does that create problems?
No, they depending on the type of visa they have, I may encourage it to keep ties to Canada. For example, if you have a non-immigrant visa, understanding your visa category is so important, and this is why, again, it's important to speak to immigration attorneys so they can explain that to you. Non-immigrant visa, and a visa such as an E2 investor visa is a non-immigrant visa. So keeping those ties to your home country is super important. Keeping a bank account, showing that you're traveling back and forth. Even I have some clients that speak that keep real estate back, and so. But I think it's important to keep assets in home country.
Okay, yeah. And that's if you're doing permanent residency, green card, and citizenship, then you can decide at that point. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And so if you end up going down the pathway of permanent residency, green card, obviously you can dissolve any assets you may have. Yeah.
I think also healthcare. A lot of the Canadians are terrified of healthcare. They lose it after 6 months out of the country, not just being in the U.S. if they're in Europe or whatever. So I think that's where some of their concerns are, is the healthcare. And then I'll talk to that because obviously we forfeited.
You've been able to.
Well, I mean, ultimately, like the healthcare up north is very broken. It's broken. It's not working well. And
I have heard that from several clients.
And we pay a premium because if you look at high income over $250K, you're paying 53% of your income towards taxes. If you're not, like we were north of $500,600, but we had corporations who would kind of pay ourselves what we needed, kind of thing.
Got
right?
it.
The rest in the holding core. But if you work for an employer and you're making $250, 53% of that goes to the taxation.
I see.
But what happens is, how much is that actually going for the healthcare? This is what I try to explain to Canadians. If you're paying 10 to 15% out of $250,000, that's $50,000 a year. I'm getting, like, again, we're not permanent residents, so we don't have access to all the healthcare, but we have a really good option now as for nationals, where it's $1,400 a month for a family of 4, and it's up to $5 million in coverage.
Absolutely. Okay.
So I asked her, how many heart attacks in a world do I need to have? She's like, you can have about 5 heart attacks, and that's what that is, which is impossible in a year.
And so what I think of, like, if you're coming to start a business, employer provided health insurance too. You're technically your company could provide your health insurance, and that'll be a write-off for the business, and then you get your health insurance. So it's certainly a question. But again, if you were to reach out to immigration attorneys and tax accountants and so on, I'm sure they can connect you to the folks,
Most definitely.
So if you have a question about health insurance, I can connect you with, someone that can answer those.
But even just to that fact as well, so $1,400 a month versus, let's say, $50,000 a year. So that's what, $10,000 a month? That's about $5,000 a month, or $4,000 a month rather, compared to $1,400. And the healthcare is a lot better here.
Got it.
Cleaner hospitals, fast service, the whole thing. So I think when Canadians think about healthcare, they got to look at, number one, no state income tax. So if you're not paying state income tax, you can allocate that towards that $1,400 a month, which is a lot less.
Good point.
If you're making money. Okay, cool. Number 9, what should Canadians be doing 12 to 24 months before they plan to move?
Oh, so I think we touched on this a little earlier, those steps you want to take, but for sure, knowing your options, right? I think you can't put the cart before the horse and be like, I want to live in Southwest Florida and look at houses.
Yeah.
Because you fall in love with houses and then you're like, wait a minute, how am I going to live here, right? So I think understanding your immigration options should be number 1.
Yes.
Because it might take you a while. Your kids might be in school, so you're not yet ready, but at least you know.
Absolutely.
You know, all right, in 6 months, this is what we're going to do, or in a year, this is what we're going to pursue. And a lot of times with the investor clients, it takes a while. We're in conversation for months, if not a year, and before they finally make the move. Understandably so, you know, that's a big move.
100%.
So
unloading assets.
Exactly. And making those decisions that need to be made while you're there is still in home country. So I think for sure understanding your visa option should be number 1. And then I think that leads into understanding your source. Where is your investment going to come from? The source of your investment. Do you need to unload some assets? Do you need to liquidate things? But that conversation has to start a little bit earlier so that you have the funds for your big idea, right, down the line.
Yes.
And so that I think also where you're going to live, you know, researching the right area for your family. If you have school-age kids, maybe you want to look at the school district. You know, as you talked about, Stephen, is it a safe area? You know, you talked about those factors your family was looking into. What's the hurricane rate in that area? And then, of course, we had one of the largest hurricanes.
I just closed the first house in September. And then, in August, and the storm came. Ian was in September. You know how many people wanted that to like come down? Like people are watching me making this move. You know, my life is very open because of social media and stuff like, because I'm selling, or else I would shut it all down. But ultimately, they were like, "Oh, how's the house?" Wink, wink. I'm like, I had to climb the roof when I got the floor. I'm like, look, not even the shingle loss, you know.
That's hilarious.
But it's true, safety factors.
So, but those are some of the things I would say. You know, understanding the correct visa option, understanding where the source of your investment is going to come from, and getting that prepared and ready. Where is your family going to live and relocate, and so on, and the type of business you want to get into. I always frown upon, you know, just buying a business just because you want to get a visa. I think you should look at it as, what is it that I'm passionate about, that I will want to grow and develop, and I want to see it thrive? And so finding the right business for your passion is also important.
Absolutely. Again, it's like rewriting your whole life.
Right.
You start from scratch in the sun.
Beautiful beach area.
I love it.
Yeah.
So last question, and I think that even for this, like, what would they, during the seminar, what are they going to learn from your practice? Let's just say.
All right. So for me, you can ask. I love questions because I want to know what's important to you. And so firstly, you can ask those questions that you've been dying to ask an immigration attorney, right? Directly from an immigration attorney. But because I am full service, I can tell you about investor-based, entrepreneurial type of visa, employment visa, family petition, even removal defense. And so I think some attorneys sometimes do one particular area of immigration because it's such a broad area of the law. But because we've done it all, you can ask questions, even if you're not looking at an investor visa, but I have this employer or my company has a branch in the US and I'm looking to relocate. How do we do that? So I can answer whatever immigration question you may have, even if it's outside the scope of what we're talking about, right? But I think secondly is, because I know with technology these days, you can put that into ChatGPT and say X, Y, and Z. I do think though that real life experience is important, right? I just had a client that you know did a E2 investor visa, or I just filed an EB1C multinational investor petition, right? So I think that real life experience is important to give that sort of real life feedback. This is what they're looking at right now, and so I'm excited to see everybody answer their questions and hopefully add value to the Canadian market.
I think so. I think you're going to be a good fit. Obviously, I trust you. You've done our immigration process as well. I call you our ChatGPT immigration attorney because you have all the answers. But yeah, we're really excited. We're really excited to get you down. This is the first time in Canada?
Oh, I've been in Canada before, but it's my first time. I'm taking my kids. And
Which part of Canada did you go?
So I actually have family in Toronto.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
okay, fair enough. So you know the weather.
Yeah. I'm
especially
prepared.
end of Feb.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, we look forward to having you out there. So thanks so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions, you can always reach out direct. You can expect Indera and family in town end of Feb.
Take care. Bye-bye.